Greetings, people of Earth! My name is Darth, and it is my esteemed honor to welcome you to the Titanfall 2 technical test. As everyone knows, I've been itching to get my claws into this game for a long time, and I have a lot to talk about. I'm actually looking at a paper full of bullet points I wrote down. Unfortunately, so far, I've played about a day or so of it at this juncture, and I'm not overly impressed, to be honest with you. And I'm going to get into why. But, you know, just take it with a grain of salt, because, you know, it's just my opinion. You may play it and love it, but there's a few things. First of all, the first thing you'll notice is, like, it's just Sniper Haven. Like, you're just gonna spawn in and just get sniped all the time. Like, everyone just sits on the rooftops and snipes the entire time. If you can get past that, you know, and you know, once you're clear of the fact that, or once you've accepted the fact, rather, that it has become a complete bro-douche sniping circle jerk, to look at the graphics, it looks absolutely beautiful. I mean, I literally cannot stress enough how happy I am with the graphical upgrade. Not that the first one was terrible, but let's face it, it could have been a lot better. My only complaint about the graphics, and it's not really a graphical thing, it's more of a design thing, is that some of the pilot models look a lot like Spectres. Now that just might be my personal pet peeve. I just know that, like I said, I personally have run right past enemies more than once thinking they were just a Spectre, and then just, you know, promptly got owned from behind. Because now the pilot's appearance, instead of being dictated by the main weapon you chose like the first game, is now decided by the tactical that you choose, which it's kind of an odd choice, to be honest. I mean, I guess it's cool that at a glance I'll know if a guy will be able to, you know, launch a grappling hook at me or, you know, cloak and disappear, I guess. But other than that, I just feel like, considering I think one of the things they were judged most harshly on last time was their lack of customization, to keep it like that was an odd choice, and to have the tactical dictate it was an even more odd choice. But speaking of tacticals, let's talk about the grappling hook that I mentioned before, because it turns out it is just a tactical. It's completely optional, which kind of bummed me out, because I feel like in the trailer it was kind of, you know, what's the word I'm looking for here? It was kind of implied to be a new piece of movement, you know, kind of like the wall running and the parkour from the first one, just kind of enhancing what was already there. And when I started playing it, it felt oddly necessary. That was another thing about the first game that kind of bugged me, was they emphasized, you know, the wall running and the parkour, but they placed everything, you know, just far enough apart that if you weren't, like, dead on with it, you were going to miss a jump. You had to be almost perfect. And I feel like they probably should have put a few things a little bit closer together, and it still would have served the purpose and flowed a little bit better. But in this one, I mean, granted, it's only the technical test, and it could have just been the two maps they chose. But it feels like all the wall running spots are a little more pushed apart, and it almost felt like the grappling hook was a little bit more necessary to move from place to place, or to help me, you know, get up higher faster, which is why I found it odd that it turned out to just be, you know, a tactical that you can switch out, because it didn't really feel like I could do without it. Plus, I didn't really want to go without it, because I thought it was just going to be a thing that everybody had all the time, but apparently not. Yeah, so, but anyway, where was I? I'm already losing my train of thought. One last thing about the tacticals, we'll move on to the big metal elephant in the room. But one of them now is hologram, and I just want to ask Respawn why. Why would you do a hologram? Many games have done hologram before, and I'm sure I can say with almost 100% certainty that nobody uses it. So why would you do it? it's guaranteed that if you play that game for a year, you might run into 1 out of every like 500 people that actually run the hologram. And I'm also willing to bet you that if they are running it, it's probably because they're using like a starter class that just has it on there and they can't switch it out yet. I don't know why people do this. No one ever uses it. Just why? Why? I just want to know why. But anyway, I'm stalling because this is probably the biggest hot button for a lot of people, and that would be the Titans themselves. I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there. You can argue me all you want, but it is what it is. Titans are essentially now kill streaks. I find that a little bit ironic because Respawn talked a lot right before the first game came out about the Titans and the fact that they did not want that to be the case. And that's why they opted to go with a timer. The way the first game worked, if you're not familiar, is every 2 minutes you would get a Titan. You could speed this up by performing well, kills, everything you did, shaved a little bit of time off that counter to drop a Titan in. And it was good. It led to a nice balance, I thought, because it really limited pub stomping, because even if you managed to back the entire enemy team into one building, you weren't going to be able to hold them there, because eventually they were going to get Titans, and that would make it a lot easier for them to fight their way out, even if you had Titans of your own. It was great because it rewarded you for doing well, but at the same time, you weren't punished too harshly if you did poorly or if you were a beginner. And I know a lot of people are going to argue that point because they're going to say, oh, it takes skill, blah, blah, blah. Listen, dude, all right? The fact of the matter is, not everybody playing this game is god at it. Not everyone wants to play it like they're playing in the Olympics, and some people just want to have fun. Some people inherently just aren't that good, and it's not fair to them to just steamroll them because you just want to be an overly aggressive D-bag and just, destroy everything in your path. I suggest taking, karate or anger management issues or something else of that nature to help you just straight up not be that much of a dick. But anyway, I'm not a fan of this change, personally. I think it's only gonna hurt the game in the long run because people are gonna play it. I know I've gone a couple matches where I've gotten multiple Titans, and I've had a couple matches where I've gotten no Titans the entire time. But just like Respawn said about the first game, I noticed in the games where we were getting just utterly destroyed and they were rolling Titans over on us the entire time and we were never able to actually earn Titans ourselves, it was absolutely no fun. And when your game is no fun, people are going to stop playing it, aside from you overly aggressive D-bags. But for every one that, is out there, there's always someone better. So eventually they're then in turn just going to get pub stomped by people better than them, and they're going to stop playing. And, But I digress. At the end of the day, look, Titanfall 2 is just... It's not fun if you don't get to pilot a Titan. That's the point of it. That's why Titan is in the name. It's ironic. Kind of like kind of like Iron Man 3, which, despite popular belief, was not named Iron Man 3 because it was the third film in the franchise, but rather because Iron Man was only actually in the movie for 3 minutes. And this, unfortunately, is following the same path. And the backpedaling on the Titans didn't even stop there. Like I said earlier, I think the thing that Respawn was criticized hardest for in the first game was the lack of customization. And they touched on that multiple times over the years, and they said, look, we know that customization was kind of shallow, but we're a small team, and we're doing something new. And we did the best we could in the amount of time we had with the amount of people that we had. And that's very fair. But now they have a way bigger team. They're adding another console to the mix. and they made the utterly baffling decision to eliminate customizing the Titans altogether. I mean, you can still equip mods to the weapons, but you're locked into the weapons for that particular Titan that you've picked. And there's a couple other like modifiers, more like passive options that you can pick. They've done this under the guise of giving each Titan its own personality, but now they just feel more generic than ever because you can't create your own variant and make it, your own. You're just locked into one of three, and there's not much you can do with it. That's another weird decision that they made. We live in a world where in-game purchases are just like a thing. Whether you're playing mobile games or something big like Overwatch or even Call of Duty itself, they have in-game purchases. You can earn them in the game, or you can pay real monies to get more of them at a time. And their system from the first game being the burn cards, which you earned in packs as you did well, and they just gave you little power-ups, like a more powerful gun for 1 life, or you had a longer-lasting, more powerful, tactical ability, stuff of that nature. Or some of them affected your Titans and gave them like extra dashing, or gave you bonus charge to your special ability right away as soon as you got in, things like that. And they dropped that completely. Which again is a really weird and poor choice if you ask me, but I digress. I'm not the game designer, what do I know? Another thing they've decided not to bring back is a core game mode, attrition, which again just totally blows my mind, because when you went online there was only 2 game modes people played, attrition and hardpoint. There were a couple other game modes, and people did play them, but nowhere near as many as played those 2. Those were the 2 core game modes. And it blows my mind that they did away with it. They do have a new version that's similar, called Bounty Hunt, and it causes you basically to earn money as you progress. And you have to take it to certain spots on the map that are quote-unquote banks and drop that money, otherwise you'll lose it when you die. Another thing that varies between that and attrition is that it's the only mode that I'm aware of that AI spawns in on now. But instead of being, part of either team's factions and fighting this war, they're now a third neutral faction that everyone can attack, which is just weird, but that's the way you earn this money. The problem is you'll go over to the side of the map where they drop in, you'll kill them, you'll get your money, and you'll go toting back to the bank all, yeah, I made $300 for my team, alright, and then you'll turn the corner and the entire enemy team is there because they know exactly where you're coming, because that's where you have to come to deposit your money, and guess what? Boom, bitch, you're dead. And it's just like, it's encouraging camping, and I don't get it. It's also like, it's kind of like hardpoint. Like, we already had hardpoint where you're fighting over one particular area the entirety of the match, or I'm sorry, 3 particular areas. So it's just weird to me to add another similar game mode where you have to get to another area and they're just gonna stand there watching it. Again, going back to the snipers, like literally every time I play that mode, I get anywhere near the bank and just get sniped out of nowhere. But again, maybe I just suck. That's what everyone's gonna tell me, right? Yeah, well, I know. I don't know. I mean, we already had a spot in Titanfall for getting spot camp or spawn camped. I guess you wouldn't call it spawn camped, but if you think when was the other time in Titanfall where you had to get to a certain spot in a certain amount of time, only to get there and find the entire enemy team is already there because they know that's where you have to go. Give up? That's every evac ever. Which is probably the only thing about the original Titanfall I could take or leave. I don't think it really added anything to the story other than bonus points if you managed to actually get on the ship and get out of there. But everyone just got close, detonated a nuclear ejection, took the thing out, and that was that. So it was probably the only feature that I would have cared. I'm sorry, wouldn't have cared if they got rid of. And of course, that's one of the few things that got carried over. But again, that's just me. It's not like I care that it is there, though. But yeah, out of all of it, this is probably the only time I don't have a semi-decent segue anyway. So we're just going to dive right into this next subject. But I think the dumbest thing so far that I've seen online and everything is not with the game itself, but again with the community. And as much as I complain about people just playing like absolute douches, and I'm a pretty adamant Xbox guy. Not that I'm opposed to PlayStation, but this is probably one of the few times where I think that my community, being the Xbox community, is just being straight up idiots. Not all of you, mind you, but I've seen a good many of them accusing PlayStation of being the reason that this game is like this. You know, those of the Xbox community that don't care for it. And that, again, is probably the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Because Sony or no Sony, we were always going to get this game. And I'll tell you why. The first game did something bold. It reinvented the formula and tried to steal... It tried to be the next big thing and steal the spotlight from Call of Duty. And I think, personally, I feel it did a great job of that. As a matter of fact, I've very much tapered off on Call of Duty over the years, and I still go back to the original Titanfall a lot more faithfully and a lot more often than I continue to play the new installments of Call of Duty. That said, they failed there because not everyone shares my enthusiasm for this game. At the end of the day, Titanfall fell in popularity very, very, very quickly. And I think that Respawn was always going to make this same game, whether or not Sony was included, because they're going after that market, that demographic, that Call of Duty player base. And quite frankly, if you know anything about marketing, if you do okay the first time, then what you do the second time is, you know, when you do it again, you just make it as even more similar to the product you're trying to take from. You want to do it, and you want to do it better than them. So that's what they think they're doing here. Whether you agree or disagree with it, that's... Sony has nothing to do with it, and I really hope that people stop saying that, because that's really, really stupid. But again, that's just me kind of babbling. Anyway, at the end of the day, look, here's my general consensus. It's purely my opinion, but to me, this didn't feel like Titanfall. This felt like Titans were making a guest appearance in Black Ops 3 as a kill streak. And, you know, you can agree with me, you can disagree with me, that's fine. That's just how I personally felt. I know plenty of people are loving it, and I know a lot of people share my opinion. But the tech test isn't over yet, so I fully intend to see it through. I'm going to submit my feedback, everything like that, and all I can do now is just pray that Respawn listens, because like I said, I'm not the only one that seems to be having these concerns. But anyway, I don't know. What do you guys think? Am I right? Am I wrong? Should I hold off on being so harsh until I get my hands on the, so heavily advertised campaign? Let me know. Tell me what you think down in the comments, and until next time, you pitiful humans, this is Darth Squeaky signing off.